The Sentinel's Call. The stars looked different now that death approached from between them. Captain Elena Reyes stood at the viewport of Geneva Station, watching as the distant points of light that didn't belong there grew gradually larger. The Mrazek fleet, 700 warships strong, had entered the solar system 3 days ago. They hadn't attempted to hide their approach. Why would they? The message they'd broadcast across all Earth frequencies had made their intentions clear enough. Captain, the Security Council is assembled. Elena turned from the viewport to face her XO, Commander Jaden Chen. His face was drawn, dark circles beneath his eyes matching her own. Nobody had slept well since the ultimatum arrived. "Any updates from Deep Space Monitoring?" she asked as they walked. Chen shook his head. "They're maintaining formation. Estimated arrival at Earth orbit in 17 hours. 17 hours until the most significant moment in human history, either their last stand or their greatest triumph." The hallway leading to the council chamber seemed longer than usual. When they entered, the room fell silent. 8 people sat around a circular table, representatives from each of Earth's unified regions. In the center of the table, a hologram showed the approaching Mrazek fleet, a swarm of red dots against the black. Captain Reyes, Director Santos, head of the Security Council, gestured to an empty chair. "Please, join us." Elena took her seat while Chen remained standing behind her. The tension in the room was palpable. "The Mrazek broadcast a second ultimatum an hour ago," Santos said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "They're no longer requesting our surrender. They're demanding it. They've seen our orbital defenses," General Wu added, his voice tight with anger. "Or lack thereof. They know we have only a handful of military vessels. They think we're defenseless." Elena's gaze drifted to the hologram. "They're right about our conventional forces, but they don't know about the Sentinel." A murmur ran through the room. Project Sentinel had been Earth's most closely guarded secret for 15 years. While the world believed resources were being poured into conventional defense systems and diplomatic initiatives, a select group of scientists and military personnel had been working on something else entirely. "Is it ready?" Santos asked. Elena nodded. "Final systems check completed yesterday. The Sentinel is operational." "One ship," General Wu scoffed. "One ship against 700. It only takes one," Elena replied quietly. The room fell silent again. Most people around the table had only theoretical knowledge of what the Sentinel could do. The technology it employed had been discovered almost by accident. Director Santos pressed a button, and the hologram shifted to show a different image, a sleek, obsidian vessel shaped like an arrowhead. Despite its size, roughly equivalent to a pre-unification aircraft carrier, it appeared streamlined, almost elegant. "For those who haven't been fully briefed," Santos said, "Captain Reyes will explain what we're looking at." Elena stood and approached the hologram. 15 years ago, a research team led by Dr. Isamu Keto was investigating quantum field manipulations when they discovered something unexpected, a way to influence gravitational constants within a localized field. She gestured, and the hologram zoomed in on the ship's hull. The breakthrough wasn't just theoretical. They found a way to harness and direct this capability. The Sentinel doesn't carry conventional weapons. It doesn't need to. Elena traced her finger along the ship's hull. "These nodes can generate fields that alter the fundamental constants of physics within their range. The ship can create localized gravity wells, manipulate spacetime, and generate controlled singularities. In simple terms," Chen added from behind her, "it can tear apart any vessel at the subatomic level or crush it into a mass no larger than a marble." General Wu leaned forward. "If this technology is so revolutionary, why build only one ship? Why not a fleet?" "Resources and secrecy," Elena replied. "The materials required are extremely rare. Building one ship stretched our capabilities to the limit. Building more would have been impossible without the Mrazek noticing. So we gambled everything on a single vessel," someone muttered. "No," Elena said firmly. We invested in the only strategy that gives us a chance. Conventional warfare against a species as advanced as the Mrazek would be suicide. The Sentinel is our only hope." Director Santos stood up. "The Mrazek have demanded our surrender by 600 tomorrow. We need to make a decision now. Do we reveal the Sentinel, or do we capitulate?" The room erupted into arguments. Some council members advocated for surrender, hoping the Mrazek would be merciful conquerors. Others insisted they fight, even if it meant the end of humanity. Elena waited for the shouting to subside before speaking again. "The Sentinel was built for this moment. We've run thousands of simulations. Against overwhelming numbers, our chances of success are still above 70%. And if it fails?" General Wu asked. "Then we're no worse off than if we surrender," Elena replied. "The Mrazek have conquered 17 other civilizations. None of them exist anymore except as slave colonies." Director Santos looked around the table. "We need to vote. All in favor of deploying the Sentinel." One by one, hands raised. Some quickly, others hesitantly. When the final hand went up, the vote was unanimous. "Captain Reyes," Santos said, turning to Elena, "the Sentinel is yours to command. Select your crew and prepare for deployment." Outside the council chamber, Chen fell into step beside Elena. "So it begins," he said quietly. Elena nodded. "Assemble the crew. I want everyone aboard in 6 hours." "Already done," Chen replied. "They're waiting at the underwater dock." The Sentinel had been constructed and housed in secret within a massive underwater facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. Even now, only a handful of people knew of its existence. As they walked toward the shuttle bay, Elena's mind raced through the possibilities that lay ahead. One ship against an armada, but not just any ship. "Do you think it will work?" Chen asked, breaking the silence. Elena didn't answer immediately. She thought about Dr. Cato, who had died 3 years ago without seeing his creation completed. She thought about the 17 civilizations that had fallen to the Mrazek. She thought about Earth. Beautiful, flawed, precious Earth. And everything that would be lost if they failed. "It has to," she finally replied. The shuttle ride to the Pacific facility took 2 hours. They descended through cloud cover and then beneath the waves, approaching an underwater mountain that didn't appear on any public maps. As they drew closer, massive doors slid open on the mountainside, revealing the cavernous dock within. And there, suspended in a cradle of light, was the Sentinel. Seeing it in person always took Elena's breath away. The hologram didn't do it justice. The ship's hull absorbed light rather than reflected it, giving it the appearance of a 3-dimensional shadow. Only the faintest blue glow from the gravity manipulation nodes hinted at the power contained within. Their shuttle docked, and Elena stepped into the facility to find her crew already assembled. 50 men and women, the best Earth had to offer. Each had trained for years in secret, preparing for this moment. "Captain on deck," someone called, and they snapped to attention. Elena looked at their faces, determined, scared, resolute. "In 17 hours, we will face the greatest threat humanity has ever known. The Mrazek believe we are defenseless. They believe we will surrender without a fight." She paused, letting her gaze meet each of theirs in turn. "They're wrong. Tomorrow, we will show them why." As her crew dispersed to their final preparations, Elena stood alone before the Sentinel. One ship against 700. The weight of humanity's fate rested on her shoulders. In the control room, screens displayed news feeds from around the world. Panic had spread as the Mrazek ultimatum became public knowledge. Some people fled to underground shelters. Others gathered in churches, mosques, temples, and synagogues. Many simply embraced loved ones, preparing for the end. They didn't know about the Sentinel. They didn't know there was still hope. Elena turned away from the screens and approached the communication terminal. "This is Captain Reyes. Begin final launch preparations. We deploy in 60 minutes." As the countdown began, she thought again of Dr. Cato's words years ago, when he first explained his discovery. The universe isn't constrained by the laws of physics. The laws of physics are constrained by the universe. Change one, and you change everything. Tomorrow, humanity would change everything. The reckoning. Dawn broke over a terrified world. The Mrazek ultimatum had expired, and their massive fleet hung in Earth's orbit like a swarm of metal locusts, visible even to the naked eye as dark specks against the morning sky. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, the underwater facility housing the Sentinel hummed with activity. Captain Alina Reyes strapped herself into the command chair on the bridge, surrounded by her crew at their stations. The moment had arrived. All systems online, Commander Chen reported from the tactical station. Gravitational nodes at full capacity. Elena nodded. Opened the bay doors. Miles above, the ocean surface began to churn. A massive circle of water, 3 kilometers wide, swirled into a perfect whirlpool. From within this maelstrom, a shadow emerged, sleek, silent, and deadly. The Sentinel rose into the air, water cascading from its obsidian hull. On the bridge, Elena watched as cloud cover parted around them. The ship accelerated upward with impossible speed, inertial dampeners negating what would otherwise have been crushing forces. "We've been detected," Lieutenant Park announced from the sensor station. Multiple Mrazek vessels altering course to intercept. "Main view screen," Elena ordered. The screen activated, showing the Mrazek fleet spread across Earth's orbit. Their ships were angular and predatory, covered in what appeared to be overlapping scales of some metallic alloy. As the Sentinel ascended, a dozen enemy vessels broke formation and moved to engage. "They're scanning us," Park reported, attempting to identify our weapons systems. Elena smiled grimly. "They won't find any." "Captain," Chen said, "we're being hailed." On screen, the view changed to show a Mrazek commander. Its skin was pale gray with a faint iridescent sheen, its face dominated by 4 multifaceted eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. When it spoke, its voice sounded like stones grinding together. "Human vessel," it said, the words translated by the ship's computer. "You have rejected our generous offer of surrender. This defiance will cost your species dearly." Elena leaned forward in her chair. "This is Captain Alina Reyes of the Earth vessel Sentinel. We do not surrender to conquerors or slavers." The Mrazek commander made a sound that might have been laughter. "One ship. Your species is even more pathetic than we believed. Your destruction will be educational for the other primitive worlds in this sector." The communication cut off. "They're charging weapons," Park announced, voice tight with tension. Elena remained calm. "Hold position. Let them come to us." The approaching Mrazek vessels fired simultaneously, streaks of sickly green energy cutting across the void. Elena watched the weapons fire approach, then nodded to Chen. "Activate gravitational field, 10-kilometer radius." Chen pressed a sequence of controls. Outside the ship, space itself seemed to shimmer as though viewed through heat haze. The incoming enemy fire entered this distortion and simply vanished. "Gravitational redirection successful," Chen reported. Their energy weapons were diverted into subspace. On the bridge, a cheer went up. The theoretical had become reality. "They're firing again," Park warned. "All 12 vessels, multiple weapon types." "Maintain field integrity," Elena ordered. "Let's show them what the Sentinel can really do." The second barrage met the same fate as the first. On the view screen, they could see the Mrazek vessels hesitating, their formation faltering as they encountered something beyond their understanding. "We're being hailed again," Chen said. The Mrazek commander reappeared, its 4 eyes blinking in what might have been confusion. "What technology is this? Identify your defensive systems immediately." "You entered our solar system uninvited," Elena replied. "You threatened our world with extinction. Now you demand explanations." She cut the communication with a gesture. "Lieutenant Park, what's the rest of their fleet doing?" "Moving into attack position, Captain. All 700 ships." Elena nodded. "Just as we anticipated." "Commander Chen, prepare for Phase 2. Chen looked up from his station, his expression somber. "Are you sure, Captain? Once we commit, there's no going back." "I'm sure," Alina said firmly. "They need to understand that humanity isn't defenseless. We just focus our resources differently." The entire Mrazek fleet was now approaching, spreading out to surround the single Earth vessel. From their perspective, they were about to obliterate an annoying gnat. They didn't realize they were flying into a trap. "Gravitational nodes at maximum capacity," Chen reported. "Field ready for expansion." Alina took a deep breath. "Engage singularity protocol. Targeted compression only." Chen's fingers flew across his console. "Targeting the 12 lead vessels. Singularity protocol engage." On the view screen, the effect was immediate and devastating. The space around the 12 Mrazek ships seemed to fold inward. The massive vessels, each the size of a pre-unification aircraft carrier, suddenly compressed as if squeezed by an invisible hand. Metal screamed and buckled. In seconds, where 12 warships had been, there were now 12 spheres the size of basketballs, perfectly compressed matter held in stasis. The rest of the Mrazek fleet froze in place. "We're receiving thousands of hails," Park reported, his voice shaking slightly. "All Mrazek vessels, open a channel to their flagship," Alina ordered. The Mrazek commander appeared again, but its demeanor had changed completely. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked very much like fear. "What have you done?" it demanded. "We've demonstrated a fraction of the Sentinel's capabilities," Alina replied calmly. "Those ships aren't destroyed. They're compressed. We can restore them, or we can release the gravitational field and let physics take its course. The choice is yours." The commander's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "This technology, it's impossible." "For you, perhaps," Alina said. "Humanity chose a different path. While other species built bigger fleets and more powerful weapons, we looked deeper into the nature of reality itself." She leaned forward. "We don't need a fleet of ships when one will suffice. Return to your territory. Spread the word that Earth is not defenseless. We simply chose quality over quantity." The Mrazek was silent for a long moment. "The Dominion has conquered 17 worlds. None have possessed technology like this. None have been human," Alina replied simply. Another silence, longer this time. Finally, the commander spoke again. "We will withdraw. The compressed vessels will remain with us as a reminder of this encounter," Alina finished. "When you've left our solar system, we'll restore them and allow them to follow." The communication ended. On the view screen, the Mrazek fleet began to turn away from Earth, their formation no longer predatory but cautious, almost fearful. "They're retreating," Park confirmed, disbelief in his voice. "All vessels accelerating away from Earth." A cheer erupted on the bridge. Alina felt the tension drain from her shoulders, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. They had gambled everything on the Sentinel, on Dr. Cato's discovery, and 15 years of secret development. The gamble had paid off. "Maintain position," she ordered. "Monitor their withdrawal. Be ready to reactivate the gravitational field if necessary." As the Mrazek fleet shrank to points of light in the distance, Alina stood from her command chair and walked to the viewport. Below, Earth continued its serene rotation, blue and green and beautiful, its people unaware of how close they had come to extinction and how thoroughly they had been defended. "Captain," Chen said, joining her at the viewport, "Defense Command is requesting a status report." Alina nodded. "Tell them the threat has been neutralized. The Sentinel performed exactly as designed." "And the Mrazek?" "They'll be back," Alina said quietly. "Not as conquerors, but as diplomats. They've just discovered they're not the most advanced species in this sector of the galaxy. That changes everything for them, and for us." Chen smiled faintly. "One ship was all it took." "No," Alina corrected. "One breakthrough. One idea that changed our understanding of physics. The ship was just the application." As they watched the last of the Mrazek fleet disappear into the darkness, Alina thought again about Dr. Cato's words. The laws of physics are constrained by the universe. Change one, and you change everything. Humanity had changed everything today. The stars would never look the same again. In the weeks that followed, the truth about the Sentinel and Project Graviton became public knowledge. Dr. Cato was posthumously celebrated as perhaps the greatest scientific mind in human history. His discovery had not only saved Earth, but had also propelled humanity to the forefront of galactic civilization in a single day. The compressed Mrazek vessels were eventually restored, their crews shaken but alive. They departed Earth orbit without a word, their previously imperious demeanor replaced by something approaching humility. 6 months later, the Mrazek returned, not with warships but with a diplomatic vessel. They sought not conquest but alliance. In their travels, they had encountered other predatory species, some even more aggressive than themselves. The universe, they explained, was a dangerous place. Humanity agreed to share some of their gravitational technology, not the most advanced applications, but enough to establish Earth as a valuable ally rather than a target for conquest. In return, the Mrazek shared star charts and introduced Earth to the wider galactic community. Captain Alina Reyes watched these developments from the bridge of the Sentinel, now openly recognized as Earth's flagship. Soon, there would be more ships with the same technology, but the Sentinel would always be the first, the ship that had faced down an armada and won. One ship had been enough, because humans had understood something the Mrazek had not. True power doesn't come from having the largest fleet or the most destructive weapons. It comes from changing the rules of the game entirely. In a galaxy filled with species that built ever larger armadas, humanity had taken a different path, and that had made all the difference.